What's there not to love about these pumpkin dinner bread rolls? I assume you're watching this because you want to make them, right? Making them the old-fashioned way requires a good amount of time, right? Between kneading, resting, shaping, proofing, and baking. That can become a little time-consuming. So instead, I came up with an easier recipe and a simpler way to make this a lot easier and quicker. So if you want to learn how to make them, stay tuned. So before we get into it, let's quickly go over what we're going to need. We'll start with bread flour. This is very important that we use bread flour and not all-purpose flour. I will explain why this is important as we start mixing. Then we also need granulated sugar, fine sea salt, eggs, softened butter, whole milk, instant yeast, and pumpkin puree. Our step one is going to be to set up. This is to expedite our recipe. So to start this, we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to warm up some milk to room temperature or no higher than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. To our mixing bowl, we're going to add that warmed up milk that we had and then 1 packet of instant yeast. We're going to whisk this for about 1 minute only. We're basically going to just mix this until the yeast is fully mixed together. Then after that, we're going to just let it rest for 2 minutes only. Now let's assume magically the 2 minutes have passed by. Now let's add our bread flour. So bread flour versus all-purpose flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content. So bread flour has a protein content between 12 to 14% versus all-purpose flour that has it at 10 to 12%. What this means is that the higher the protein content, the easier gluten will develop. Then we're going to add the granulated sugar, pumpkin puree, and then our fine sea salt. This recipe is great because it does not sacrifice quality. It does, however, cut down the time to just an easy rest and bake. So now after that, we're going to switch to our knead hook. And now we're going to knead this for 2 minutes slowly. After 2 minutes only, we're going to add 1 egg at a time. It's important that those eggs are at room temperature because if they're cold, it will affect the texture of your dough. I'll show up here how it looks when it actually is cold. This is what it comes out to. We'll do 1 egg at a time, let it fully incorporate, then we'll add the next one. Now that the eggs are fully incorporated and your dough looks something like this, now we're going to add 1 tablespoon of butter at a time, and then we'll let it knead a little longer. Then we'll add the next tablespoon of butter. Following by this, we will repeat the process over and over until we have added every single tablespoon of butter. Once we get to the point that we have incorporated every single tablespoon of butter into the dough, we're going to move on to our final kneading process. We will knead this dough on medium now for about 5 minutes. Your dough at the end should look something like this. As you can see, mine is stretchy. It's a little bit sticky, but not fully sticky. All right, so we're going to move on to step number 3 now. Step number 3 begins by buttering up our baking dish or a baking pan, okay? Something like this. Now, you can also use oil, cooking spray, or even flour and parchment paper. I prefer butter, okay? After this, we're going to just flour up a flat surface area like this, and now we're going to grab our dough that we just made. We're going to put it down. So as you can see from that process, our dough is going to be a little bit sticky. So from here, we're going to add a little bit more flour. But I have found that when I make it this way, this sticky and this texture, it's when I get the fluffiest rolls and the fluffiest bread, and these rolls don't come out doughy. So from this point, I'm going to just roll it up a little bit like this. I'm going to ideally try to get about 8 to 10 pieces, okay? Okay, so I'm going to cut it down the middle first. See now here, I can get probably 4 pieces. 1 here, here, and here, okay? We'll repeat the process with this one. For this one, we have 8 pieces, okay? So I'm going to start with the rolling process. I'm going to take this one first. Okay, from this point, I'm going to add a little bit more flour to that like I just did. I'm going to just gently knead it a little bit. Then from this point, we're going to just roll it up, okay? The traditional way is like this, right? When you're working with dough this loose, the best way to do is in your hand. Grab it like this, and you just start using the palm of your hand and your fingers to hold it back, see? You essentially go round and round and round, and the more you'll notice that your dough gets starting to get sticky. When you notice that, like that, see, add a little bit more flour, it'll kind of release it a little, okay? We want it to get a little bit sticky so that we're actually able to work it down here, okay? It's not super sticky, see that? And then when we end up, it's just a little circle like that. Put that to the side, and we'll repeat the process with the other one. Okay, so now that we have them, we're going to actually put them into our panel. And I'm just going to start putting them in. So one in the middle, one over here, one over there, one over there. Between them, right? You want to give them space because right now that we're going to give them the only time they're actually going to rest, they're going to increase in size. So you want to make sure they have enough space. What we're going to do now is just cover them. Now allow them to rest for an hour to an hour and a half. Now we move on to step number 4. In any mixing bowl, we're going to whisk together 1 egg, water, granulated sugar, and some pumpkin puree. The exact amounts are going to be in the description below. This was the reason we wanted the oven to be preheated to have that warm area. Our rolls are finally ready. They should look like this. They have pretty much doubled in size. We're going to take a brush and brush all this egg wash on each of them on top. That's it. Now that our rolls look something like this and they're brushed up, they're ready to go, we're going to put them in the oven uncovered. We're going to bake them for 20 to 25 minutes, but I'm going to check them at 20 minutes and see if they're ready. If not, I'll let them go for a little bit of time. So it's important to note that whatever time I get won't be exactly the time you get. There's a lot of factors that can affect this, between the type of oven you use, temperature, if your oven may be off on temperature. At the end, when they're ready, I'm going to show you exactly how to know when they're ready. But ideally, we're going to start checking them at 20 minutes and then about 2 to 3 minutes after that. The easiest way for you to know if they're ready, we're going to either take a toothpick or a knife. In this case scenario, I have a knife. I'm going to just poke the biggest one that I can find, poke it all the way through. As you can see, my knife comes out clean. That's a really good indicator that they're ready. You don't want to keep them going any further because when we pull them out, there's carryover heat. And that's why it's important that when they come out, they rest for about 10 to 15 minutes before you actually open one up. Let me know if yours came out the same. Let me know if you enjoyed them and if this worked out for you. And there we go. We have our pumpkin dinner bread rolls. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And remember to check out some of my other baking videos as well.